is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Your war room for insider news and draft analysis.
Dallas selects Emmitt Smith, running back from Florida.
Nothing can prepare you for this. No matter how many mock interviews you do, this is the real.
You know, being able to grow up fast, you know, going to a smaller school, also being able to grow up fast, having a son at a young age. So I think everything, when you take, you know, different things like that and put it in the bowl and you mix it up, that's where all the hunger comes from.
It's very special. You know, this is something I've always wanted to do ever since I was a kid. I watched my dad play in the league for 14 years, and I knew at a young age this is what I wanted to do in my life. And it's just a surreal feeling just to be here right now. So I'm just excited, and I'm enjoying the process so far.
It's all business here in Indianapolis as the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine is rolling on, and so is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show live from Radio Row inside the Indiana Convention Center. Kyle Yeomans, Dave Hellman, back again with the Athletics' Dane Brugler, and we came in with a couple of sound bites from the final media session. This is our final show of the week. It's a little bit bittersweet, and it's more bitter, I feel like, than sweet, because it's been a great week of information. It's been a long week, a lot of hard work, a lot of grind, but man, it just kind of speaks to the fact that the NFL Combine coming to a close as we speak, really, over the next couple days, and then it's that next step going forward to the draft.
And we talked about all week how the schedule was different, and it never felt that way as much as it did last night.
Yeah.
Being in the stadium last night, watching these drills, and it's just like, gosh, I should be. This is different. It's 10 o'clock at night. I'm here watching a 40-yard dash, when usually every year at 10 o'clock you're out, you're mingling, you're doing different things. And so a little different this year, and tonight will be day 2 of the workouts, offensive line, running backs tonight. And then we'll get into defense Saturday and Sunday night, so should be interesting.
Which, yeah, Dane has ways about him, so he actually was watching the 40.
Yep.
But gotta have ways.
You gotta have ways in this industry. But it was weird because, like, you know, y'all went to dinner. I stopped by to say hi to some friends nearby, and like the bars are all running the drills. Like, all of the people that are here to cover the drills are like out getting drinks and food and looking up at the TV like, oh, wow, yeah, that's going on right now.
Oh, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, no, seriously, it was very bizarre because typically that's happening like around this time of day. Then you go out and let off some steam later, but like kind of multitasking between drinking the beer and watching the drills. It's a little surreal.
And you tweeted out last night on your Twitter account at HellmanDC. You said you were watching the Titanic. How was it? Did you see the first time watching it?
The boat sinks.
Yeah,
Jack dies.
Could he have fit on the door?
I thought you were talking about Quintez Cephas's 40 time.
Oh,
was that?
It did.
Well, you were actually talking about the movie.
So, well,
okay.
I'm out getting some drinks and saying hi to some friends, grabbing some dinner, and then like literally, I probably didn't leave the bar till 10:30, but I walked back to my hotel. I was like, I'll watch the rest. There's only like 20 minutes left. I'll watch the end in my room. And the hotel didn't get NFL Network. So, there was nothing I couldn't watch.
So, naturally.
So, I was like, well, Titanic's on, so I'll throw that on for a little while.
Well, I mean, that's one way to spend your first night of drills.
It was a weird night. That's what I'm saying. It was a weird night. But, I caught up in the morning. It's fine.
Absolutely. You can always find ways nowadays to get right back caught up, and we did indeed do so with those drills last night. There were some standouts, and of course you're going to see some of that with the wide receiver group, the quarterbacks going last night as well, tight ends, a big part of that, but kind of on the back burner when it comes to the guys who stole the show. Going into it, Henry Ruggs III, wide receiver out of Alabama, what was his 40 time, and that was the headline. That was what we were all watching for, but there were a couple guys that stood out. A Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame, Denzel Mims out of Baylor. But I want to ask you guys before we get too far into it, what was last night's best storyline for you?
For me, it was, and I'm going to steal your LSU thunder here. Sorry.
Well, it sounds better coming from you than from me.
Yeah. Justin Jefferson, and I think I've called him Jordan Jefferson about 10 times, but Justin Jefferson, not his older brother, to me, he was the winner of the night. And, it's not like he's coming out of nowhere. I mean, he was already considered a possible first-round pick. But going in, I thought that this is a guy that is not a true burner. He wins with savvy, as a seasoned route runner. He can win at the stem. He can create his own space, and that's what makes him such a dynamic player, not just necessarily running by guys. And so I was thinking low 4.5s would be a great time for him. And he goes out and runs a 4.43 in the 40-yard dash. Just was moving. But it's not only that. It was the gauntlet. The gauntlet, I mentioned this before, is my favorite drill the entire week. There's just no hiding. I mean, it's fast and furious. You're going this way, this way, this way. No drops. Jefferson was clean, efficient. He was outstanding in that drill. I thought, to me, Jefferson was the big winner of the night, just watching with my eyes.
Which, I mean, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Like I said, it sounds worse coming from me. I mean, I've been watching the guy for 2 years. He's incredible. He's natural. Amazing route runner. He's so smooth.
Yeah.
Like, everything he does is so effortless. But even me, the worst LSU homer you've ever met, like, I'm like, top 60 is a cool range for him. Like, if he can get drafted between somewhere in 40 and 60, that would be great. And now experts like Dane are telling me he might be gone by pick 25, and I didn't see that coming. So good for him.
Just real quick, we talk about how the top tier of the receivers would be Judy, Lamb, and Ruggs, and then
take your pick.
Right, but then that second tier, I think you start with him. I think
really.
I mean, you would put him at the top of that list.
I think there is a strong argument to be made. I mean, Chenault, Higgins, Rager, Ayuk. I mean, you can make cases for a lot of these guys. You can make a strong case for Jefferson, and then the case was on the field last night working out.
Which I think I said that at the top of the week is like somebody who we're not really talking about will enter the conversation. And if you follow the draft, you know who Justin Jefferson is. But again, nobody had him in that kind of little gaggle of receivers at the top, and now you're telling me he might be the fourth receiver off the board. That's amazing.
And I think that kind of goes to the intrigue around this wide receiver class, because there are those top guys, which all the eyes are going to be on. They were last night. They will continue all the way up into the draft. Then you got that big group of receivers in the second tier, and that's really kind of at least the quotations around it, second tier. But they're all so close together that I think that's where you'll see the majority of the movement, like a guy like Justin Jefferson, and then a guy like Denzel Mims, who's now getting thrusted into that conversation as well.
I was going to throw Mims out there. He killed it. He was awesome in the 40, awesome in the 3-cone.
Yeah,
so athletic. Another Texas guy who Devin Duvernay.
Yeah,
if you're back in Texas listening to this.
KT was happy last night.
He was right behind, if I've got my results right, he was right behind Henry Ruggs in terms of fastest 40, right?
He was top 5.
Yeah. You're right. He was 5th. Yeah, there were some burners out there.
Yeah, there were.
I'll be honest with you, though. A little disappointed in Duvernay with some of the catching stuff, the field work. Fought the ball a little bit, but the agility stuff, the speed stuff, he was outstanding.
Yeah.
See, and that's kind of what we talked about previously when bringing up Devin Duvernay. Is on film, it almost looks like he glides. He almost doesn't look like he's going 100%. Now, I'm not saying he sandbags in the game, because I don't think that's necessarily the case, but we were kind of interested going into it to see what kind of speed and agility that he had, because that was one of the knocks on his film was, hey, he doesn't necessarily look like he's running around people out there, and as a slot guy in the NFL, you kind of have to have some of that at some point to have that speed. Well, he came out and ran a really nice 40 and looked good in the agility-wise. That's why it was interesting that he did struggle catch-wise, though. That's a guy who really one of the best parts about his game in college was the fact he didn't have a whole lot of drops, and he had those sure hands.
Right, but if you watch the tape, it's I think they used him as basically an extension of the run game.
Yeah.
A lot of screens, and I think he tracks the ball well naturally, just over his shoulder. But there were a few times, the corner stuff, the back shoulder stuff, where he struggled a little bit when he had to adjust his body. And it's one workout. I think it's not like it's changing his grade at all. But it was kind of, he was the opposite of like a Quintez Cephas, who ran terribly, ran in the 4.7s, but you could see his basketball background with the way he would snatch the football, and so a little different, contrast with those two guys.
I've got one that I want to throw your way, who he was definitely a winner last night, but and this is a conversation that's happening on Twitter, so I'm going to borrow from that, but the Golden Domer.
Yeah.
Mr. Claypool.
Yeah.
Chase Claypool, 6'4", 238, goes out last night, runs a 4.42, jumps 41 inches, just looks like an all-around freak.
At 238, that's ridiculous.
Are we talking? I mean, is this guy the best tight end in the class, and we don't realize it yet?
I don't get why there's a tight end discussion. I mean, he's
because it seems like he could do it. I mean, and again, you got to readjust the conversation. Like, no,
right.
He's not Martellus Bennett. Like, he's not going to maul people in the run game. But
why put his hand on the ground? And when I mean, I think he could be like a big slot. I think that'd be great. I think he's a pass catcher first and foremost, and so I'm not going to put him in line or I think he could play across the formation, inside, outside. And this is a case where the receiver tight end lines, they're very blurred because I could see it. I understand why someone would suggest that, but he'd be more of a the Evan Ingram, more of that slot guy, more so than a traditional tight end with kind of how we associate these tight ends.
And I think I would probably agree more with you, Dana. I think last night proved that there really shouldn't be that much of a conversation when it comes to Claypool going to tight end. I mean, we've had that conversation before, whether it be on Twitter, and I don't know if we've talked about it actually on the show yet, but maybe off air, talking about, hey, is this a guy that just fits more into that mold, could be more successful up on the line of scrimmage rather than out wide as a wide receiver? I think last night he kind of showed I should be a wide receiver.
Well, when you see that 240, that's what your mind immediately, understandably, goes to. Well,
you say the same thing about Colin Johnson too, though.
Right? Is he outgrowing the position? And I think, but with that athletic profile, I'd rather keep him in the slot or outside, let him match up with some of these undersized corners. And I think the big thing too with Chase Claypool, and I wrote about this, there are going to be a lot of special teams coaches banging on the table saying, let's draft him because we want him on special teams. The toughness, the power, and that speed coming down on coverages. He had 25 tackles at Notre Dame over his career, so we know he can do it. I think that definitely – and when you have such a stacked group of these guys and it's a little crowded – the more you can do, the more value that you offer. And so that's why a guy like Chase Claypool, at the very worst, I think you're talking about a fourth receiver, special teams standout, and at the best, you're talking about a guy that's going to step in as a starter and be a featured weapon for you.
Let's talk quarterbacks. Last night we saw some of the quarterbacks throwing it around. Now, the top names, of course, Tua and Joe Burrow, not a part of it, but we saw Justin Herbert go out there and throw the football around. Jordan Love, who caught some eyes as well. Jacob Eason, I thought, had kind of a good night overall, quarterback-wise. But there's those guys out in this quarterback class that had a chance last night to show some speed and agility off, but also show off the arms as well. Who stood out to you in the first night of drills?
Eason, man, that ball just
it really does.
I mean, you hear it. It's just it cuts through the air like it's nothing. It's crazy. But he was a little off at first. It took him a little while to settle in, and you could see that in some of the drills. It starts with Herbert and Love, both of these guys. I don't think either of them did anything that would change your opinion based on 24 hours ago, 48 hours ago. I thought both were outstanding, and both should be in that type of setting. So it was not a surprise to see both those guys perform well during the throwing portion. I think that Fromm is the opposite of the Eason conversation. We mentioned this on last show, how going back to back and the stark difference in velocity. But at the same time, while there was a stark difference, Fromm was a lot more accurate. He did a better job with the chemistry and the timing of the throws. The ball loses life. I thought Jalen Hurts, he performed well in the 40-yard dash and the agility stuff. But my biggest questions with Jalen Hurts, you're just not going to figure out. You're not going to have those questions answered in a setting like that. And that's, anticipation, holding the ball too long, reading defenses. It's great that Jalen Hurts did what he did, but my questions from tape are still kind of unanswered. He's not going to be able to show that in a setting like the Combine.
I agree with that. Do you also I think you could say something similar about a guy like Eason.
Oh, definitely.
In the sense that, this type of stuff is designed to show off just how rare his arm talent is and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
His problem is decision-making, seeing things, anticipating things.
Yeah.
And so he can go out there and throw as beautiful a ball as he wants to, it doesn't really make me think any more highly of him because I've seen some of the very questionable things that he does during live action.
Very, very fair. He is a bigger, slower, emphasis on slower Stafford. I mean, that's just who he is. But can he do enough to negotiate that pocket and under pressure, make the reads and make the throws? Yeah, you're right. That's something that I don't think we're going to figure out until, and even if he, and this is where the debate gets about sitting a quarterback or playing him. Like, you could sit him, but is he really going to gain the experience needed to learn that and become better in that area? And that's why a lot of people were telling him, go back to school for your senior year, because the NFL is, it's not a developmental league. It'll eat you up, spit you out if you don't have this stuff. So, yeah, Eason is a very, very intriguing player who I'm going to guess he goes in the second round just because the arm talent is so special. Yeah. But, there's a lot of, buyer beware with him.
He had the highest velocity on the straight line speed throw last night, correct?
He was second. He was 62, and then Nate Stanley from Iowa had 63.
Okay. I knew we were right around that top mark in terms of that.
Right.
But does it make a difference when you look at those two guys, if we're comparing Fromm and Eason and kind of looking at those two back to back? Does it make a difference the fact that Fromm has had a significant amount of more starts and experience at the college level rather than Eason during his time starting?
Yeah, no.
So it's almost it was a vast difference in terms of the amount of starts and the record that was had between the two.
And I think both these guys, they're not going to be for everybody. With Fromm, you need more of a West Coast offense that's going to emphasize timing and rhythm and quick throws, and he needs talent around him to be successful. There's no question. Where Eason's more of the traditional prototype, but he doesn't have a lot of that experience. He played as a freshman and then missed 2 years, and played this past year at Washington. Did some nice things, got better throughout the year as he kind of got a little more seasoned with everything, but he's still, the development's not there. And so where is he mentally in his development, and is there room to grow? That's the big thing. That's the toughest part about quarterbacks. Fromm, he's probably close to his ceiling in terms of what he's going to be, but Eason's a little more tougher to figure out. How close is Eason to his ceiling? I mean, is he kind of just he is who he is, or is he really going to develop? And that's Joe Burrow, perfect example. Who thought he had as much of a room to grow as he did?
No, I mean, they were calling Burrow a day 3 pick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know anybody that had a top or day 1 or day 2 pick on Joe Burrow. I mean, because I spend my summers trading information with teams, with agents, with scouts, everybody, and not one person. The highest grade I heard on Burrow was a 4th round grade.
Wow.
So I mean that's just, and that's a rare case. We're not going to get that every year, but it's really speaks to the fact that the quarterback position remains the toughest position to evaluate.
So quarterbacks, tight ends, or quarterbacks, wide receivers. Let's talk about those tight ends. We had one last night.
Chase Claypool.
Not Chase Claypool. No,
another Notre Dame tight end.
Throw that in there. Yeah. How about some other guys? Albert O last night running a 4.49 40.
Albert who?
Okay, Albert O out of Missouri.
Dane's gonna know.
Ukuwebunam.
That's good. Yeah.
Pretty good.
You did a good job.
Pretty good. I googled it. So. Ukuwebunam, or what would you say it as?
Alberto. Yeah.
Just Alberto? You're not going to say it?
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry.
But he goes out, runs a 4.49, and it was one of the quicker times we've seen as a tight end over the past couple of years, or really all time, honestly, in the combine. And showed off some of the skills out there as well. But what did you guys think from the tight end position?
Have you looked at Alberto coming in, right?
I have not seen tape of Alberto. I only know that his production dropped off pretty heavily because Missouri's a disaster.
Well, and even since his redshirt freshman year, because that's when you really kind of put himself on the radar. I think he had double-digit touchdown catches and really kind of said, "Hey, I'm a guy you need to know." And then the last 2 years, he was kind of a little disappointing. But he doesn't play, and I think I mentioned this last show, the 90-10 rule. 90% should meet expectations. There's probably going to be about 10% that surprise you, and he's part of that 10% with that 4.49 because he doesn't play that fast. Now, sometimes on the on the vertical stuff, he can stretch the seam a little bit when he can just run. But when you ask him to, make cuts and in and out of his breaks, that's where you just don't see a lot of urgency. Needs to be a little more loose with his athleticism when it comes to the route running. And can he do that? Maybe. But there's no question, a 4.49. You're going to run a sub 4.5 at the tight end position. It's going to help you. I thought he was probably a borderline top 100 guy. Good chance he gets into that late portion of the third round. But with those types of times, that's really going to help him go on day 2.
Dave, any thoughts on the tight ends last night?
I'm a big believer that, we talk about like how useful is a 40 really. That literally just watching on TV, I saw Alberto's 40, and I was like, wow, that's really impressive. And I was like, do I care? Do I care that much about straight line speed?
Right.
But I am a big believer, and I think this is true. If I had to pick one drill where I'm just like, show me that, and I'll tell you how I feel about the guy, would probably be 3-cone.
Absolutely. That's my opinion.
Is that just across the board, or is that specifically?
If we're talking running backs and receivers, I care a little bit more about the 40. I care a little bit more about the vertical. But just in terms of change of direction and speed and balance and bend and all that stuff, which is something that like every football player needs, that drill is going to expose whether you have it or not. And that's why the one thing that jumped out to me was that Cole Kmet did not do very well in the 3-cone drill. I'm looking at it right now. He's down. 7.44, which is
it's rough.
Second worst time of the day.
Wow. Well, and it is the opposite for Troutman.
Yeah. And number one, Adam Troutman, our Dayton guy, he was the best at 6.78, which is not far behind the pace of, I'm looking at it on the site right here, Dennis Pitta was a 6.72. Like, that's really good.
Here's a stat for you. After I got home last night, I looked it up when I got to my hotel room. The 6.78 in the 3-cone is the 6th best time at the 3-cone drill for a tight end ever in the history of the combine. So that tells you right there how impressive that is. But meanwhile, he ran a 4.80 in the 40. So the straight line stuff wasn't exactly there. But
see, doesn't that, and that's where I'm at, where I'm like, okay, 4.8 doesn't just jump off the page at you, but give me the 4.8 with the great 3-cone, and I'm more excited about that than the 4.5 40.
100%.
100 times out of 100.
Agree, especially with the tight ends, receivers, where it's not just go routes. You're going to have to change directions. If you're a stiff athlete, the 3-cone will expose you, and that's kind of what happened with some of these guys yesterday.
And Albert O yesterday did not run the 3-cone drill after he had the 4.49, so kind of tough to tell on that one. So maybe we'll get to see that during his Missouri Pro Day. So wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, they are done. They're on their way back home. Offensive linemen and running backs will start their drills tonight. That starts at 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central. But today, the early morning session, we heard a lot from the secondary guys, corners, safeties, a lot of guys of positions of need for the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about that coming up in just a little bit. But when we come back, Twitter on the 20 returns. The final time we get to talk to Dane Brugler this week. Send in your questions at the Draft Show on Twitter. We'll be back from Indianapolis here in just a moment.
I'm Jay Novacek, former tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Back in the day, I was the guy who always got the tough yards, and that's why I run with John Deere today. In fact, I have a John Deere 3025E tractor that can handle any yard work I need to do, even the tough yards way out back. So if you have 1 acre or 1,000, John Deere has the equipment that's just right for you. Visit a John Deere dealer today and run with us. We are the official tractor provider of your Dallas Cowboys.
Essilor is a proud sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, helping fans see more and do more with our best vision solutions. Our lens technologies reveal a world more beautiful than you can imagine. For a limited time, get the Essilor Next Gen offer. When you buy the latest generation of Transitions lenses with select Essilor lenses, you can choose a second pair of clear lenses for free with qualifying frame purchases. Restrictions apply. Find a participating eye care professional by visiting EssilorUSA.com. Essilor. See more, do more.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys? Jack Black. Right now you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
Your new apartment's big. Such a great deal.
It's okay.
Just okay? What's not to?
Right above the subway.
Well, I bet you don't even notice it after the...
That's my neighbor, Angus.
A deal that's just okay is not okay. Get a great deal with America's Best Network. Come into an AT&T store to find out how to get one of our popular smartphones for $0 down. Based on GWS 1 score, September 2019.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. And now your hosts, David Hellman and Kyle Yeomans.
Probably the 3 best guys. Have I met with them? No, I haven't. I haven't met with them yet. And I'm not. I think I would fit well with them in their scheme. I think, like I said, I'm a versatile guy, so I can do a lot of different things. So I think I'll fit well in a lot of schemes. To be honest with you, I don't think there's a scheme that I wouldn't do well in. So, I try to make sure that I am able to fit in any scheme that I am put in. So, but I think I'll fit well in this scheme.
Dallas Cowboys Draft Show back here from Indianapolis, and draft sweetheart, Alabama safety Xavier McKinney, saying he would fit well into the Cowboys system. He said he'd fit well into any system, but he specifically said the Dallas Cowboys system overall gets some excitement going, right? Maybe.
Can we get him over here and ask him what the Cowboys system is? 'Cause
that's a good question.
If Rod Marinelli was still here, I would have an idea, but I don't even know what Mike Nolan's got in mind. So I'd love to hear what he thinks that they would do with him.
That's a good point.
I mean, which, to be fair, I think Xavier McKinney can do just about anything you ask of him, at least adequately.
Still the top safety on the board?
No.
No? Okay.
Did you hear him? Someone asked him who the toughest receiver he faced this year. He mentioned Brian Edwards from South Carolina, then your 2 LSU receivers. So
they're nice, man. Which we were joking. Somebody on Twitter asked, "Like, why? How come nobody's talking about Jamar Chase? Because he's going back to LSU.
Because he's going to be a Tiger again.
Only 19.
Purple and gold, back in Baton Rouge, and Dave Hellman smiles ear to ear on the other side of the table.
Well, real quick. I know. I mean, we're going to do Twitter on the 20, but I mean, and we talked about the safeties and how these are Grant Delpit, LSU, Xavier McKinney, Alabama, both flawed to a degree, both still probably first-round picks. Very quickly, because you kind of blinked at me when you said I didn't think McKinney was the best. Like, what? Give me your breakdown of those two, where they stand for you.
I didn't know you liked Kyle Duggar that much.
Oh, get out.
Oh, there it is.
That's great.
Grant Delpit is not a perfect prospect, but he is the best safety in this.
I know, and I need to be careful what I say because all the hate and slander.
There's hate and slander.
Somebody's going to tweet it.
That Grant Delpit's getting. And I think with Delpit, coming into the year, he had so much hype, and you see the range, you see the cover awareness, and in today's NFL, that's what matters more than anything. But you still have to be able to be reliable as a tackler, and he's just. It doesn't help that he's not the biggest guy. That he. It does seem like he makes a few key decisions that maybe he doesn't go all in and goes for the tackle. I think his technique is off. But I get why I just struggle with him because there's too many negative plays on his tape for a guy that I'm going to invest a first-round pick in. And honestly, same thing with Xavier McKinney. I don't love either of these guys.
Wow.
I think
it's fair.
No, I know. Right.
I posted actually on Twitter after Xavier McKinney said Brian Edwards is one of the receivers that he thought was the best they faced. I posted an all-22 clip of when Alabama and South Carolina faced off, and Brian Edwards just got him turned around, created space, and was able to do that. So with Xavier McKinney, he's a much better tackler, downhill defender. But can you trust him as a guy that's going to be in man coverage? Can you trust him single high? There are a few examples of him doing these things, but against NFL level athletes, it's just a different animal. And so I like these safeties. I don't love them, and I think it's tough to figure out what is the proper value for these guys.
Which So I would say, and I know, like I said, Grant Delpit's he's got his flaws.
Mm-hmm.
I trust more that you could teach him to tackle with better technique and better effort.
It's fixable. Yeah.
It's fixable as opposed to, like, if you don't have it in coverage, I just don't think you have it.
Yeah,
sure.
And Grant Delpit over 2 years has displayed an ability to cover and to make plays in coverage, which is what this defense in Dallas has so sorely needed. Which is why I think he's the more valuable of the two players.
I think that's a good argument.
Having said that, we don't have to get all into it. I said on Wednesday, like, I don't think the Cowboys would draft either one of them at 17.
Yeah.
Not at 17. Maybe
now,
in a
if they
trade
trade
back
back
scenario, yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think there might be a little bit too much of those scenarios and those holes on the back end of the defense that need to be filled before they take a safety at 17. But with that being said, let's get into Twitter on the 20.
Twitter on the 20.
So our first question here on Twitter on the 20 comes from Clayton, and he says, as the Cowboys, happy or sad if Tua goes at number 2 and we avoid Chase Young, being that the Redskins don't take Chase Young?
Happy. Very happy.
So
keep the generational pass rusher out of the division, yes.
But you would rather face Tua overall for however long and face.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, then you would have to play.
Then you would have to play
Tua Tagovailoa.
I mean, all right. If Tua's going to be healthy and you're going to be getting 10 to 12 years of Tua, then probably just draft Chase Young.
But there's a big if there, though.
No, for sure.
So it's do you take the gamble or?
I'm not ready to sit here in February of 2020 and say that Tua is going to be a bust, though. I mean, I have my concerns, but I'm not ready to say.
He's got his health concerns.
I will say this: I would not be surprised that come draft day, would not be surprised if either Justin Herbert or Jordan Love was the second quarterback drafted. Would not be surprised at all.
Oh.
Just putting that out there.
Do you think Dan Snyder's been known to do some crazy stuff. I mean, the word on the street is, that Dwayne Haskins was a Dan Snyder.
Absolutely,
initiative.
100%.
So it's hard for me to believe that Dan Snyder would give up on a guy he wanted so badly last year after 1 year.
Especially because the coaches didn't want him. So Snyder kind of flexed his muscles on that one.
At the same time, maybe this new staff is the same when they're like, all right, fine, let's go get this other guy.
I have to believe that part of the coaching interview process was not, so what do you think about our quarterback situation? It was, so how are you going to make Dwayne Haskins a good player?
I would hope so.
So, but it wasn't even the option of, like.
That's how a healthy franchise would do it, I think.
Well, no, I think a healthy franchise is probably going to be more along the lines of what about our quarterback situation, and not saying our quarterback is Dwayne Haskins. What are we going to do with him? Like, just because you want a coach that wants to coach him, not feels like they have to coach him. But it's tough because Haskins, we saw so little of him, and the little that we did see was not positive. But we cite example after example of guys that struggled as rookies. I think with the Redskins, we'll see with Trent Williams coming back. We'll see. They've got a pretty promising wide receiver group led by Terry McLaurin. So, we'll see. I think hopefully I'd like to see Dwayne Haskins get another year, especially with the new coaching staff in there. But when you're picking number 2 overall, you have to at least do your due diligence on the quarterbacks that could be available to you.
Well, and it's also not unheard of to see a quarterback selected in the first round by an organization back-to-back years. I mean, we saw it just most recently with Josh Rosen.
That was like the first time.
I was going to say, it's not unheard of because it just happened.
It just happened, though. In the modern NFL,
Right. It's a lot of impatience out there. So, that's why you can't completely rule it out. But because Haskins was a Snyder pick, because he, like I said, flexed his muscles, overruled the coaches, and went that direction, I don't think he's going to be ready to just move on from that pick. So now
if a quarterback is taken 2 overall, I bet it's
trade out.
Washington traded out of that pick.
Traded out of it.
I don't think that's the worst idea I've ever heard. That roster, in my opinion, is not as flat out awful as you would expect from a team picking number 2. You've got some talent on the O-line. You've got some talented pass. Their defensive front is very impressive. They need defensive backs. They could. Terry McLaurin broke out, but they could use some other skill players.
Right.
But I don't think that the Redskins are as
atrociously untalented as you would expect from a team picking number 2.
Dane being a guy who's kind of kept up with these organizations, is it out of the question to see Miami maybe give up 2 of their 3 first-round picks and try and go up to 2 and make sure that they do snag a Tua?
If they're convinced that Tua is going to be healthy and going to be their guy, then that's what you do. That's why you gather all these draft picks so you can be aggressive and go get the right quarterback. We just have no idea of. I mean, so we could see it. We just have no idea of knowing if that's how Miami's going to feel. And we're not going to know until at least April 9th when Tua is able to do his personal pro day. We see him throw. We see the body movements. That's going to be such a big part of the process for any team that's considering Tua. And it's just the quarterbacks, they drive the conversation every year, and this year is no different. But we're not forcing the conversation because there's a lot of intrigue at the top. Well, maybe not the top because Joe Burrow, he didn't do anything last night in the on-field drills, the running, anything like that. But I tell you what, I was watching him on the sideline. He was one of the first guys up, fist bumps, high fives with all the receivers, tight ends. He just has this magnetism to him, where just guys, and he's not a well, we know that.
Look at the sparkle in the eye. On the,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the other day, just pop. Oh, Joe Burrow's here. He's not a rah-rah guy. He's not a guy that's going to be overly vocal, but he just has a presence to him that I think teammates really rally around. It really resonates with them, and that's something that really showed. Even Burrow didn't do anything, drill-wise, but I came away impressed. And if I was impressed by it, I can promise you scouts were paying attention as well.
Oh, 100%. And our next question, Daniel Roberts, has to do with last night as well, but he asked everybody last year made a big stink about DK Metcalf's testing. Why isn't anybody making a big deal about Jalen Reagor's just yet?
Was it historically bad?
I was going to say,
it's kind of average.
Right.
We're the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think it was probably disappointing because people were expecting Jalen Reagor to run like a 4.3
to come out and set the world on fire.
But if I'm not mistaken, like his times were all like within an acceptable range of what you would want from a draftable wide receiver, right?
Right. I think just in our minds it was so inflated.
Supposed to be freaky, yeah.
Right.
So
and
he
that was
a 4.47 in the 40 last night.
Yeah. And
so sub
4.5
is still really good.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that won a state championship in the long jump in high school, so we knew the jumps were going to be really impressive, and they were. He did not disappoint with the jumps. That lower body explosiveness. I was more like the 40-yard dash was a little disappointing. I was more concerned about the shuttles were not great, and that's something that a little surprising. You expected better out of him.
He had a 4.46 in the shuttle.
Yeah, which is not a great time.
Cone drill was a 7.31.
Yeah, no, I would go as far as to say he had a disappointing day.
Yeah.
But, basically people said last year that DK Metcalf was so stiff and so unathletic that he couldn't do anything except run in a straight line.
Yeah.
I don't think we're saying that about Jalen Reagor.
I don't think so either.
But I do, entering the combine, we, on the draft show before the show, and I feel like the narrative was that Dane talked about the trio of Lamb, Judy, and Ruggs. A lot of people thought Jalen Reagor was in the conversation to be the next best guy after that.
Right.
And like we said at the top of the show, nobody was talking about Justin Jefferson. And that's what these drills do is they flip it because obviously one guy had a much better night than the other.
Yeah.
And I didn't think Reagor was a first-round pick, but I thought that he had a chance to really help himself, and I don't think he did that. Now I don't think he's necessarily dropping, but in a loaded class like this, like we've been talking about, it's the littlest things that could really separate yourself.
Kent Garrison coming on by, former member of the Cowboys staff, saying hi. Oh, here he comes.
Hey,
there it is.
There's the cameo.
And that's exactly how Radio Row goes. Next question comes from Connor, and this is an intriguing one because we've talked about this prospect before. Connor asked, where do you see Terrell Burgess playing at the next level, of course, out of Utah? And he said, little on the smaller side for a safety prospect, but in my opinion, that's where he projects best. Is he good enough as a cover guy to play both spots, both nickel and safety?
So I think he's kind of the in-between. He's a nickel.
I think so, too.
I don't know that he can do everything that you want in a safety. I don't know that he can do everything you want in a corner, but I think he can do everything you want in a nickel player. So he can play that inside position. He understands relationships between multiple routes. He can read those combinations, and he flips his hips. He can run. He can find the football. He can locate. And the guy, you talk to his coaches about him, they rave about this guy, his smarts, how the character, how it impacts the rest of the locker room. So he is a guy that off the field, no concerns, team guy. On the field, not someone that's, he might be a little scheme specific with how you use him in the sub packages, but we're talking about a late third, early fourth rounder probably. So that's why there's a discount sticker on him compared to being talked about as a first or second rounder.
And we talked to him earlier this morning, and he also said even though he grew up in California, his family was full of diehard Dallas Cowboys fans. They would go to the games all the time. They would find a way to go to Texas. So, that's another guy that you can potentially look at as one of those former Cowboys fans that could end up just filling a position of need in their former fandom. Now, moving on, this is another this or that question. And it says, would you take Javon Kinlaw out of South Carolina, defensive tackle, or one of the top 3 receivers if they fell to 17. Those top 3 receivers that he tweeted about were CeeDee Lamb out of Oklahoma, Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama, and then his teammate from college, Henry Ruggs III.
I'm driving the 40 burger train.
You are.
But even I wouldn't do that. Give me, the second best defensive tackle in the class. Derek Brown's, he's in his own category.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be long gone, but Kinlaw can do so much stuff. He can be so disruptive. I think he's rare in general, but then throw that in there with the fact that this receiver class is absurd.
Yep.
Also, if you want to get really Cowboys specific, there's so much smoke coming out of Indy this week that Randall Cobb's coming back.
Yep.
I'll be shocked if he doesn't, based on what we've heard. So, we'll see what happens with Amari Cooper, but it seems reasonable that your top 3 receivers are all back. You don't have any defensive tackles under contract. Like, the value there, I think it's really mismatched when you consider that you could get a great receiver at pick 80, let alone pick 17.
It's tough because I think on my board, I will have Lamb as a higher graded player than Kinlaw. But everything you said, I agree with. In terms of,
that's why best player available is a lie.
It's very subjective.
It's a lie.
The context is required. And you're right about, you can wait on the receiver position.
I would have a hard frickin' time moving away from CeeDee Lamb. I would say that.
Oh, yeah.
That would be agonizing.
That would be tough. But when you look at it and say, everything you just said about defensive tackle and how that's a bigger need, how you really want a receiver, okay, you can wait and still get a pretty talented wideout, second, third, fourth round. I think I'm going to ride the fence here. Sorry. Sorry, Broadus. Because I
make a pick.
Yeah, where's Broadus, coward?
I know.
Come on, coward.
Hey,
make a decision, coward.
It's February. It's not April. Not yet. So Lamb is the better player, but I think I'd probably lean more towards you.
It reminds me, which this is a terrible example because Taco Charlton didn't even finish his rookie contract.
Yeah.
But the reason they did it in the first place, I know they should have picked TJ Watt, but the reason they did it is we have to get the pass rusher that can make an impact here, and there will be DBs down the line for us.
Yeah.
And they turned out to be right about that to a degree. They picked the wrong pass rusher, but the strategy was sound.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's fair.
And so I just feel way better about their odds of finding a good receiver later than a defensive tackle who can actually make an impact, at least early.
And I think I would agree here as well, because would you agree with me here that either one of those 4 guys, if you had Ruggs, Lamb, Jeudy, or Kinlaw coming to Dallas wearing the navy blue blazer in the next couple of days, holding up a jersey in a press conference, would you be happy?
Absolutely.
Say the 4 names again? I'm sorry.
Jeudy, Ruggs,
Kinlaw
or Lamb.
I'd be ecstatic.
Would you be ecstatic about any of those 4 guys?
Yes.
It's a home run pick no matter what, at least at the moment. Whenever we come to draft time, that's what it looks like. It looks like those are 4 guys that are going to make an immediate impact for your football team. So I think you have a little bit of confidence. You have a little bit of peace knowing that you're going to get a guy if this is the scenario that works out and you have a decision to make. And honestly, another thing that's really encouraging is that there's a chance that one of those 4 guys is there at 17 based on the offensive tackles and the quarterbacks that could go earlier.
I will say this, though. The fans never forget. The fans never forget who you passed on.
Yep.
Whether it's T.J. Watt or whoever. They will not forget. So, it's not like that. You need to create any pressure that they don't already feel, but it would be tough to pass on one of those guys to take the other.
That's one of the intricacies of the draft that makes it so fun. One more question here for Twitter on the 20. Jeremy says, who was the belle of the interview circuit throughout the course of the week? And any particularly negative interviewees?
Well, I mean, the thing about that is, like, you're talking about with us or with the teams?
With all of it, the teams. Or with us. Let's do with media.
Yeah, say with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
we don't know
you
the
can
team
never
side
100%
of it right now.
trust what's coming out of the team situation.
The 37 parking tickets for Ross Blacklock is one of the few fun ones that I've heard. But out of the media interviews.
Did anyone really stick out to you as being I remember a couple years ago, Antonio Callaway to me was just was so bad. He was so nervous and he was not comfortable, and it was a rough thing to go through, and to the point where I almost felt sorry for him. This is not going well, but I don't think there was anything like that. At least not that I was a part of.
Yeah,
this year.
I have to be totally transparent. Like with my duties as a beat writer and chasing the Jones family around, I wasn't at as many interviews as the two of y'all.
Yeah.
Nobody really jumped out to me as just like a terrible interview.
Mm-hmm. I think someone keep it to today this morning. Jeff Okudah was really
awesome.
impressive.
Yeah,
he was great.
He's a confident dude.
Yeah, and
in
that's
a good way.
what you would expect from a corner.
Sure.
I thought it was really fascinating when a couple times someone asked him how do you clean up your sloppy plays, and he's like, I had 0 pass interference penalties, I had 0 defensive holding penalties. I think you need to go back to the tape and watch explain to me these sloppy plays. And then later someone asked about does he pay attention to teams that are picking at the top of the draft. He literally rattled off, okay, well, this is the Redskins depth chart at cornerback. They just got rid of Josh Norman. They're negotiating with Dunbar. He went through the top 5. Every team in the top 5, he knew their depth chart in and out at the cornerback position. This is a guy that does his homework. He's paying attention. Very, very bright individual.
We're gonna go deeper into Jeffrey Okudah here in a little bit.
I will say, so I don't mean to, we're not talking Antonio Callaway or Robert Kimdichie from a few years ago. That was brutal.
That
too.
was bad.
Well,
who you got?
Tua.
Wow.
Not in the sense that he was he's fine. He seems like a super nice guy, very mature and polite. But I was just bored and underwhelmed. And it felt a little phony, for lack of a better word, for me. A great example is he's I don't think, the story goes, if you don't know, that his dad just turned him into a lefty, basically.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, he just had him start throwing with his left hand early on in life. And he said, he's like, I don't think I'd be here. I don't think I'd be here if he hadn't done that. And somebody immediately was like, why? How do you know? And he's like, what is it about being left-handed that makes you
so confident in that fact?
And he's like, oh, well, I don't know. I've never thrown with my right hand. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're obviously talented enough to have gotten here. It stands to reason you could have done it. And somebody else was like, well, what's so different about playing left-handed? And he was like, I don't know. The ball spins a different way. And I was just like, and somebody was like, what's your greatest strength? What do you need to work on the most? He was just like, I don't like talking about myself. I'm embarrassed. I'm shy. You guys are making me talk about myself. I was like, guess what, bro? That's the point of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Give me something. Tell me something interesting. Because it just sounds like it just felt very phony to me. I was like, give me a little more context. Give me a little more detail.
He came off very tired,
he was in the hospital for 14 hours on Monday.
I think that is the context I'm trying to get at. I think that played a part. He just came off like it was not the right frame of mind for him to be doing that at that point in time.
That's fair. That's a really good point.
So, but I agree. It was not an impressive interview, and just hopefully for his sake, the team interviews go better than what he did with the media.
I thought there were some really good interviews, particularly today. I mean, C.J. Henderson was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Noah Igbenogany, who we heard a little bit of earlier. Same thing with Antoine Winfield Jr. out of Minnesota. He had an awesome press conference. There weren't a whole big ton of people because Xavier McKinney went at the same time.
I saw your tweet that he said he wants to return punts, and I was like, let's get him here.
He had a wonderful interview, and it was because of the fact that he kind of went into his dad and the way he looks up to his father, who, of course, had a 14-year playing career in the NFL. So that was really intriguing. One guy that I didn't necessarily like as much, and this one might make some Jeff Kavanaugh guys unhappy. Jeff Gladney was kind of meh. Yeah, he's kind of meh up on the podium today, so that was kind of one disappointing thing. Overall, I thought he was okay, but just compared to some of the other guys, I mean, Terrell Burgess out of Utah was great.
Yeah, he's awesome.
There were a lot of really good podium guys over the course of the week, but today I think might have been the best day in terms of some of the more likable guys.
You got to have swagger to play defensive back, so it's not a surprise that they would be good interviews.
And one guy who has plenty of swagger and is plenty of the center of conversation, Jeffrey Okudah. We already just talked about him, the cornerback out of Ohio State. When we come back, we're going to talk about Okudah, who apparently grew up a Cowboys fan. We'll talk about that and maybe what it'll take if the Cowboys want to try and fill a position with need with Okudah when we return here on the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Since 1865, Stetson hats are American-made with pride right here in Texas. And Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Want to show your Texas and team pride too? You can. By purchasing your own Stetson, you can look just like how the flag guys do on field at every home game. Stetson hats, the official crown of all self-respecting Cowboys and your favorite football team. Get yours today in the Stadium Pro Shop or at Stetson.com.
Your new apartment's big. Such a great deal.
It's okay.
Just okay? What's not too...
It's right above the subway.
Well, I bet you don't even notice it after the...
That's my neighbor, Angus.
A deal that's just okay is not okay. Get a great deal with America's Best Network. Come into an AT&T store to find out how to get one of our popular smartphones for $0 down. Based on GWS 1 score, September 2019.
Essilor is a proud sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, helping fans see more and do more with our best vision solutions. Our lens technologies reveal a world more beautiful than you can imagine. For a limited time, get the Essilor Next Gen offer. When you buy the latest generation of Transitions lenses with select Essilor lenses, you can choose a second pair of clear lenses for free with qualifying frame purchases. Restrictions apply. Find a participating eye care professional by visiting EssilorUSA.com. Essilor. See more, do more.
So, you're shopping, and that's when you see it. Aisle 23. Dr. Pepper stacked from top to bottom as far as the eye can see. The phrase too good to be true comes to mind, yet there it is. A rich, delicious Dr. Pepper paradise. Wait, did that can of Dr. Pepper just open itself for you? They all are. As if to say, so nice to treat you. And even though it feels weird to talk to a can, you pick one up and say, it's so nice to be treated. Dr. Pepper, so nice to treat you.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. And now your hosts, David Hellman and Kyle Yeomans.
I met with the DB coach. I know that they had hired Al Harris. So when I sat down with him, I was like, I think you had dreadlocks back in the day, right? And he was like, yeah, that's me. So I was able to sit down with him. We talked football. He kind of like, I let him just talk, and I soaked up the game. And that's what I want to do, just kind of take a nugget, get better like that. Yeah, I did. I did grow up a Cowboys fan. Watched all the Cowboys games. Big fan of the guys that they've had come through. And so I know how special it is to guys in the area to wear the star on their helmet.
The final segment of the week here from Radio Row in the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine, the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Dave Hellman, Dane Brugler, Kyle Yeomans with you. Coming back into the segment, Jeffrey Okudah, cornerback of Ohio State. We were just talking about him a little bit, said grew up a Cowboys fan, and he knows what it would mean to wear the star on the side of the helmet. So, guys, here's the conversation. Got about 12 minutes here. We're going to get deep into this. Oh, I see you're grinning over there. Jeff Okudah, pretty much the I guess, unanimous number one corner in the entire draft. Agree?
Agree.
Yep.
Okay. What would it take for the Dallas Cowboys to go up and get Jeff Okudah? And how we're going to start this conversation, there's a lot at stake here because there's multiple picks. You're most likely going to have to, go up to
3?
For the purposes of this, I mean, between 3 and 5.
Okay, between 3 and 5. So 3 is where earliest, because we're assuming Joe Burrow would go 1 to Cincinnati. Chase Young would be taken second by insert name here, or a Tua or somebody. What would it take to get up to 3 from 17?
I think we have to say Tua or Chase Young too, because if he doesn't go, then you're talking about trading him for Chase Young.
Why am I not trading up for Chase Young?
That's a good point.
So,
okay, so let's try and get to 3 here.
Right.
Trying to get to 3.
Let's get to 3
with the Detroit Lions, who just don't seem to want to take anybody with that number 3 overall pick
not
at this point. An act of God. That's what it would take. I mean,
wow. Well, let's lay it out. It would take 17, obviously.
That's people. It would take pick 17.
Okay.
So we did the
do it.
We did the math on this when we decided we wanted to talk about it.
Yes.
And
bring out the chart.
Trade charts aren't universal, but the Cowboys pick is worth roughly 950 points.
Okay.
Detroit's pick at number 3 is worth roughly 2,200. That's a 1,250 point difference. Just for reference, because there's always somebody that's like, throw in your 4, 5, and 6, and you'll get that
doesn't necessarily happen.
Premium picks are what move the needle on trades.
Yes.
And so what we say, it's a 1,250 point difference.
Yes.
The Cowboys' second round pick is only worth 390.
Okay.
Their third round pick is worth 180. So you're only halfway there throwing in both of those picks.
2 and 3.
Which the point is, you're not getting that done without giving up next year's first-round pick.
Oh, it has to happen.
You're just not doing it.
Yeah.
And then you're probably throwing a sweetener in on top of it. To Dane's point, you try to give up next year's 1 and this year's 3.
Okay.
Realistic, like if it's me, I'm holding you up for your number 2 as well.
Okay.
So you're talking next year's 1, this year's 1, and this year's 2.
Just for reference, how valuable is next year's 1? Well, on the trade chart.
Well, it's next year's picks are always worth a little bit less.
Right.
Okay.
So and that's the thing.
That's how it works, because it's a guessing game.
There's no way to assign a value to it, because the Cowboys could pick 1 or 32.
Exactly.
There's no way to know. So it's worth a little bit less, but you just have to. You're just throwing it in there.
Okay. What is it? Does it have a value
No.
number though on it at
No.
all? Okay.
Does it? I mean, they don't.
No.
I didn't know if they had it kind of.
You're just throwing it in
guessing.
there as a bar. You're saying wherever it is, and that's what makes it so scary. Is it could be a top 5 pick. It could be, you could win the Super Bowl. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
That's what makes it tricky.
And that's the thing is, exactly. The Cowboys are in a position where if they made the playoffs next year, would it surprise anybody? Not really. They shouldn't. I mean, they're a capable team, but if they were picking 8th overall, would that necessarily be surprising either? I mean, that's possible. You factor in injuries and everything else.
Top 10, I think, would surprise me.
It would.
Top 10 would surprise me.
Dak gets hurt week 2. I'm just saying.
Then we've got Anthony Gordon to back that up.
Stop it.
They're in the game of football.
You're right. You're right.
So nothing would surprise you. That goes into the thinking because I'll tell you this: if it happens like that, the Cowboys will not be the only team making calls to go up to number 3.
That's good.
So but it's more competition for the Cowboys. So that almost guarantees that the 1 and 3 is probably not going to be enough. 1 and 2, and hey, the Lions might not even do that because they're looking at this draft saying we want to come away with Okudah or Derek Brown or Isaiah Simmons, one of these dudes on defense to make us a better team. If we go better than 17. That's just not going to do it for us. Even if we are gaining a 1 and a 2 next year for a team that might be in the playoffs. So you're talking about a pick in the 20s next year? How appealing is that? So
that's the thing, too, is the chart helps you get an idea.
Right.
But it's up to the team.
It really is.
The Lions could say, we want your entire draft and next year's 1, or we're not doing it. Like, they can ask for whatever the hell they want. You're the one that wants the pick. So I just don't think it's realistic. And on top of that, I think the world of Jeff Okudah, it's not worth it at that position. Like, what's the debate we're having right now about, should the Cowboys be as ready to move on from Byron Jones as they are? Well, where'd they find him?
Yeah.
Pick 27.
Yeah. Good point.
And so, and again, why are they so comfortable conceivably letting him go, which it sounds like they will do? Because as good as he is, their belief at least is that he does not impact the game enough to be worth it. And I tend to agree. Sticking with the
at least compared to the guys that they have to sign, that's also on that list.
That is the thing for the Dallas Cowboys in the era that they are currently in. They have so many good, expensive players that are taking up so much of the top of their salary cap
The only way to offset it and hope to be successful is to have draft picks and hit on them and replenish the middle of your roster with affordable talent. And you can't do that if you're trading away picks to acquire one player. That's just my opinion.
No, I think it's well said. And I think we also have to factor in what is the gap, how this team views between Okudah and, say, like a C.J. Henderson.
Sure.
Is C.J. if you can get C.J. Henderson, say, at 17, is it really – would you rather have Jeff Okudah or would you rather have C.J. Henderson plus whoever you take in the first round next year, whoever you take in the second round next year? I mean, it's a quantity-quality debate, but I start to lean more towards the 3 guys than I would just the 1. And like we said, it's just it's not against Okudah. It's not against, we think he's an outstanding player, but I don't know. I lean more towards Dave.
It's a very similar conversation than that kind of what we had earlier in the week. Maybe not we had, but what Cowboys Nation had whenever Tua was talking about being a fan of the Cowboys. Oh, what would it take to go up and get Tua Tagovailoa out of Alabama? But at the same time, this guy actually fills a position of need. Mm-hmm. So would a 1-3 intrigue you? But I'm not just gonna say Jeffrey Okudah here. We've said let's get to 3. Let's say Chase Young somehow gets to 3. Would you do it for a Chase Young though?
That would be different because
I'm a little.
Yeah. I would do it.
More inclined
I'd do it in
to
a
do
heartbeat.
it
A little more inclined.
I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Okay.
He would do it in a heartbeat. Well,
Yeah.
what are you giving up in a heartbeat? Or are you just saying name your price?
No, not
name
name
your
your price, but I would give it 17.
17
next year's 1, and then I try to give up next year's 3 or this year's 3. I try to get it done with that.
They say you're absolutely off your rocker, Dane.
Yes, it wouldn't happen.
We know how good this guy is.
What about 2? How about this year, next year's 1, and a 2?
Yeah, and I don't even think that would get it done because
you don't think so?
I think the Lions would be crazy to not take him at that pick. And the other thing, too, is the competition. If Chase Young is still available at 3,
stuff out?
There are going to be some just crazy offers being thrown because people have short memories in the NFL. They saw what Nick Bosa did this past year for the 49ers as a rookie, and, obviously the 49ers defensive line is stacked, and that allowed Bosa to have a lot of one-on-one opportunities and all that. But Chase Young has the ability to be better than Nick Bosa when we look back at this draft. And so if you can add a talent like that, you don't pass it by. You go and be aggressive and go make it happen.
I really think I'm only down to do a deal like that for a quarterback. I really am.
Out of any position.
Because it's the only thing that gives you that much value back. Because it's the most important position in the game. He touches the ball every snap. And we've seen it. Houston and Kansas City went and got quarterbacks. The Rams and the Eagles got Goff and Wentz the same way.
Knowing what we know now about Nick Bosa, you wouldn't have done that for Nick Bosa?
I don't think so.
See, I would.
You just contradicted yourself, though.
Why?
Because the Niners are loaded. That's not a knock on Bosa.
No.
But he's got so much. He's got Eric Armstead. He's got DeForest Buckner. He's got Richard Sherman and those guys in the secondary helping him. He was the cherry on top of what was already a pretty talented defense.
Absolutely.
He is not the foundational stone of that defense and is just doing it. I think a better point is, Myles Garrett's been good, and he had a good rookie season, but he wasn't Nick Bosa right off the bat because he didn't have the help.
Right. That's part of it. Also part of it is he just hasn't necessarily developed some of his go-to moves, and he needs to develop more. But he's impacting the quarterback. I understand your point completely because you are right about in terms of touching the football and impacting the game. And I think we can. And I love draft picks, but the chance to go get a difference maker like that.
I will say, if the Cowboys pick up a couple free agent defensive tackles and then do that deal, and you've got Chase Young and DeMarcus Lawrence on the same line, you're going to win a lot of football games.
Yes, you are.
That will impact the
out
scoreboard.
That secondary issue, too.
You're also not going to have a lot of draft picks to replenish the middle of your roster.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's
the other thing. It's a risk. There's no question.
This is a top-heavy team.
Mm-hmm.
It just is.
100%.
Their top 8 players are about as good as anybody in the league could ask to be. And then their other 45 are, they have their moments and they can be, they looked really good the year before. In 2019, the middle of your roster didn't step up. And that's a big part of the reason why they were a 500 team.
So Okudah, no. Chase Young, it's a big fat maybe.
It's a no regardless for me, because I need the picks.
Joe Burrow falls to 3. Can't sign Dak. Go.
I mean,
yes or no? Get nuts, Dave.
What do you want me to say? That I'd love to have Joe Burrow. Put Joe Burrow on and that's Joe Burrow on this team would be great, but at what cost?
Yeah, it would be a lot of cost.
You're just gonna let Dak Prescott walk away for nothing because the people who think you're trading
tag
him
and trade him for pick 3.
Fortune favors the bold.
I mean, that's my line. I'm usually the one that says that. I'm trying to get picks, guys.
All right, you know what? I'll take
picks.
I'll take the LSU guy. I know you hate him. I'll take him. We'll do everything to get Burrow.
Let's sell the farm.
Yes, absolutely.
Everybody all in for Joe Burrow.
I'm sold.
I'm trading back. I'm trading back from 17. I can't trade back from 17 and still get Kayvon Chase on, can I?
Probably not.
That's not realistic.
That's probably not happen.
I'm trading back from 17, getting a corner.
C.J. Henderson.
Then picking 3 or 3 times on 3 times on day 2.
Deal.
Extra second.
I would do that.
Yeah.
That'd be so fun.
That's how you fix the roster.
I'll take Burrow.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll take Burrow.
Well,
too.
we started the week here saying
Don't do this
in
to me.
segment 1.
Don't do this to
saying,
me.
let's get nuts. Let's get wild. Let's start looking at how things could really shape out.
As somebody who loves the draft, I would love to see that happen.
It'd be
incredible. Not so much. I mean, Burrow.
Burrow's not going to fall to 3.
But the thought, just as a thought exercise, like Tua, how he would wind up on the Cowboys and what it would look like, is fascinating.
Yeah.
But
it's also unrealistic.
It's my job to work in reality. Thank you. Yeah. And so I just don't see it.
That's how it goes.
But it's okay.
Well, one thing that's unrealistic is how good Dane Brugler is at his job.
Amazing.
Oh.
And
thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Man.
Enjoyed it.
It really has been a pleasure, and that is going to do it here from Indianapolis. Now, our coverage is not done just yet. We're still going to be sticking around. Follow Dave Hellman at Hellman DC on Twitter. Dane's at DP Brugler on Twitter as well. I'm at Kyle_Yeomans. And we'll still be around. We'll still be here in Indy, but this is the final show here from Radio Row. So for everybody involved in these broadcasts back at the studio at the Star, for Alex and Aaron and Nick here in Indianapolis, I'm Kyle saying so long until next week. We'll see you next Thursday at 11.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?